Hello and welcome to the Civil War Report, your local channel for Civil War updates. I'm Anaita.
And I'm Alice.
Today is April 9th, 1865. The weather is cloudy with a 40% chance of showers in the evening.
The headline of the day is Lee's surrender at Appomattox Courthouse. Let's go to Zenith with the story.
Thanks, Alice. From what I can see here, no one is signing a treaty. If they did, it would mean the United States recognized the Confederate government as a separate nation, and the Union wouldn't want that, would they? On April 7, 1865, General Ulysses S. Grant had sent a note to Robert E. Lee demanding a Confederate surrender.
Before agreeing, Lee asked for Grant's terms of surrender. The terms are simple. Surrender your men and agree not to fight anymore. They decided to meet at Appomattox Courthouse, which is where we are now. The Confederates have agreed to relinquish their men and quell their rebellion. It looks like the Civil War is finally over, and the Union has won. This is a surprising turn of events, considering those early Confederate victories, starting with the Battle of Bull Run Creek, the first battle of the Civil War 4 years ago. The Union was commanded by General Irvin McDowell, and the Confederate forces were commanded by General P.G.T. Beauregard. Thomas J. Jackson earned his nickname Stonewall Jackson in this battle. Back to you, Alice. Action.
Wow, that's a surprise considering Lee's long military background. Now that the war is over, prisoners will be exchanged from both sides. The prisoner of war camps were miserable with insufficient food and an unhealthy environment.
Many died from yellow fever and starvation. About 56,000 men died in these camps. The sheer number is much higher than the amount of men that died during the war.
However, this cruel treatment wasn't intentional, but rather due to the lack of supplies. Although one expects the soldiers in the camps to be loafing around, they actually found ways to pass the time. For example, prisoners at Johnson's Island prison started a debate team, a thespian group, and a YMCA.
Also, when it snowed, many people had snowball fights. Some prisons in the Richmond area published newspapers and had a library. Captives also played chess, cards, and backgammon.
Eventually, when prisoners were exchanged during the war, they took an oath of non-combat, but many broke that oath and returned to fighting after being released from the camps.
On January 1st, 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation was issued by President Abraham Lincoln. This document set slaves free in the Confederate States. It also allowed free slaves to fight for the Union in the war. However, slaves in the border states were excluded, as President Lincoln didn't want to anger the border states and cause them to secede from the Union. However, this document would have been meaningless if the Union hadn't won the Civil War. The Emancipation Proclamation brought inspiration to the Union troops. Every battle they won would mean spreading freedom. However, slaves in the western areas were made in captivity due to communication limits. Now that the war is over, we hope these areas recognize the announcement and set their slaves free.
This cruel war may have been fought by men, but they weren't the only ones who contributed to the war effort. Women served as nurses and doctors and supplied food and ammunition. One famous woman was Clara Barton. Known as the Angel of the Battlefield, she brought much-needed medicine and supplies to food and food. There were also many spies during this war. The Confederate side set up an operation headed by a former Baltimore lawyer, William Norris, known as the Secret Service Bureau. This organization used a constantly changing system of messengers that passed information from Washington to Army officials in Richmond. On the other hand, Allen Pinkerton gathered information from Union General George B. McClellan. However, Pinkerton constantly overestimated the number of Confederate forces, and that resulted in some blunders by General McClellan. Men weren't the only ones spying, though. Many women also served as spies on both sides. Rose O'Neill Greenhow was particularly successful, which caused Pinkerton to arrest her. She was released from Old Capitol Prison in June 1862. Another Confederate woman spy was Belle Boyd, who snuck information to General Stonewall Jackson in Shenandoah Valley. Elizabeth Van Luke, a northern woman, ran an operation in her family's farm. Another woman, Sarah Emma Edmonds, posed as a black slave in order to enter Confederate camps in Virginia. Women and spies played an important role in the Civil War.
Thanks for tuning into the Civil War Report. We will be back on May 1st for news on Reconstruction. This has been a Kazeo Waghorn production.